Hi, Conduit. This week we were back in our Minor Prophet series, and we're on the second to last book in that series. We're talking about the book Zephaniah. And Zephaniah is a book that challenges us to have a bigger picture of who God is. It's a particularly helpful or corrective book for our day and age. And we were reminded, we started off by talking about this quote from A.W. Tozer. And that quote was a challenge, and it was saying that the most important thing about us at any given point is our conception or our idea about who God is. Because whoever and however we conceive of God, if we're thinking of God in a low term or in a high term, we're going to be moving in direction towards how we understand God. So having an understanding of God that's not just based on my understanding or what I would prefer God to be like, but actually taking the Bible and considering what does God say about himself? And in my own thinking about God, is it reflective of what he has said about himself? And so it's important for us to challenge ourselves to consider the whole of Scripture, to not just deal with the passages that are easy to read or comfortable to read, but saying all of this is profitable for teaching, rebuking, and correcting and training up in righteousness. Let us consider it all and what it does for us and what it does for helping us understand God better. We will always be limited in our understanding of God, but can we stretch those limits a little bit more? And so the book of Zephaniah is difficult. If you start off in that first chapter and you just go through and it talks about the day of the Lord being a place of bitter crying, a place where the Lord will wipe away all of these things, and you're like, what is going on? Why is the day of the Lord destroying all of these things? And then you see that at the root of it is God's jealousy, is God's desire to remove idolatry from not just Israel, but from the world. And so God's jealous anger, God's not just insecure jealousy, God's righteous jealousy, just like a groom, like a husband who is jealous for his wife or for his bride and saying, no, you are mine, you are the one for me, I want to protect you, I want to keep you from running to these other places. And so that is God's desire. God is saying, and he's calling out the Israelites for seeking idols to get all of the things that God would have readily given to them had they simply sought him. The Israelites, we see this pattern of them relying on idols and wealths and riches in order to get sort of whatever it is that they desire, prosperity, fertility, success. And that's a challenge for us. And then we see this beautiful picture that kind of bookends the book of Zephaniah. In Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 14, we see God described as this mighty warrior who is bringing about the day of the Lord, this judgment. And then in chapter 3, at the end of the book, we see that mighty warrior, God as mighty warrior, or mighty to save in some translations, come back. But this time, God isn't bringing judgment. God is singing over top of his purified people. After the removal of all of the idolatry, of all that is evil and all that is broken, he's calling to himself these people, all of the people who were so often shrugged off by the world. And he says, I will make a people out of you. You will be mine, and I will sing over you, and I will live among you. I will be your God and your provider. And we see this beautiful image. And so we're challenged. God as both mighty warrior who brings about the day of the Lord, this purifying, jealous fire, and the mighty warrior who protects and sings over his people. And with that creates a bigger view of who God is, a bigger view of the gospel, a bigger and grander understanding of what it means that Jesus Christ has made a way for us to be reconciled to God. And that is the essence of the book of Zephaniah. And it's a challenge for you and I, for us to consider ourselves and say, perhaps I'm not pursuing a good bountiful crop this year like the Israelites were pursuing with the worship of Baal or Molech. But perhaps I'm pursuing success. Perhaps I'm pursuing happiness. Perhaps I'm pursuing significance, right? And I'm willing to do anything for it. And is that perhaps leading us to rely on things that are not God? Are we perhaps pursuing idols not of wood and stone, but idols built out of our own lives and Instagram feeds and the alike, and thinking that perhaps if I just get this thing? I challenge all of you this week in your groups to think about answering that question. We had a question that I posed saying, if only blank, then I would be happy. You could change that out and you said, if only blank, then I would be truly successful. If only blank, then I would be really significant. What are those things that you are hinging your life upon, saying, I must get this, if only this thing, if only people would think of me this way, if only I got success this way, if only I had a significant other, if only this, then I would have what I truly desire. And my challenge for you is to consider that and perhaps identify if that has become an idol for you, a place in which you are relying on something else above and beyond God. And what does it look like to turn that over to Him and say, Lord, I'm willing to rely on you. I'm willing to trust you for these things that I feel like I need, but I know that you are good. You're a good Father who will provide for me. So I hope that this produces some excellent conversation this week. This next week, we're going to be finishing up the series on the minor prophets. We're going to be talking about not Zephaniah, but Zechariah. And so I hope you all are able to join us, and I will see you this Sunday.